Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Eckhart. I'm a regional clinical engineer with the Winnipeg Region Health Authority. It's a fancy title for biomedical engineer. Basically, the difference between a clinical engineer and a biomedical engineer is a clinical engineer is somebody who works directly with physicians and with healthcare practitioners to acquire equipment to bring into a hospital, whereas a biomedical engineer might be seen more as the designer of those pieces of equipment. So I'll tell you a little bit about biomedical engineering, I'll tell you a little bit about clinical engineering and lots of the other disciplines that I work with on a day-to-day basis. If you have any questions after the presentation, my email's at the bottom there. Feel free to write me a note, and I'm happy to respond. So a little bit about myself. I went to the University of British Columbia and I got a master's degree in biomedical engineering, and I grew up in Ottawa, and through that area I have a mechanical engineering degree. I got into mechanical engineering because I was really interested in cars when I was in high school. I would spend my spares sitting in the library reading car magazines and learning everything I could about cars. Only to discover when I got into mechanical engineering that I wasn't super stellar at that kind of work. The dynamics, the machinery, the motions and all that, that really wasn't where a lot of my strengths laid. I focused instead on things that I was really good at, which were thermodynamics and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. I did really well in those courses. And it was I kind of saw myself as, all right, well, I'll start moving into more of the construction industry, building, and I ended up getting a job part-time while I was in university as with the hospital as the facilities maintenance operator. So we did a lot of the day-to-day repairs on all of the major equipment in the hospital from an infrastructure perspective. So all the heating systems, the cooling systems, plumbing, electrical, structural stuff. I worked with tradesmen and all that kind of stuff. It was really cool because I got to experience all of the guts of the buildings. I had all the keys to all the doors, all the back alleys and whatnot, and the catwalks. So it was really cool in terms of being a young engineer, not really sure what you're looking at doing, and providing, or not really sure what you're interested in doing. It really provided a good opportunity to see a whole lot of different disciplines. And I spent a lot of time there changing light bulbs and putting up bulletin boards. And the cool thing about light bulbs is that every single light bulb burns out at some point in time. So you really get a good opportunity to see a whole lot of different places in the hospital. A little bit, mind-numbing work, but it was really cool because I was in physicians' offices, I was in nurses' offices, I was in administrators' offices, and one day I actually ended up in the biomedical engineering office. Having no prior knowledge of such a field or a discipline or anything like that, I became a little bit intrigued and asked a few questions, started talking with people. Next thing you knew, I was graduating school, taking courses in that, and applying for a master's program in the field. So it was kind of cool how it worked out. Another reason for the engineering profession, just as a whole, is one of the first things they told us when I went to undergrad is that as an engineer, you can basically do pretty much anything once you have an engineering degree. It provides you with a lot of discipline, a lot of critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, and that's very handy across a lot of different disciplines. So I've lived here in Winnipeg since October 2010. I moved here from Vancouver after spending about a year and a half once I graduated looking for a job, making a job. It was the middle of the recession, and most of the work that I personally do and am very interested in doing is within the public sector for healthcare. When I graduated, there was not a lot of jobs in that. Everybody was kind of cutting and slashing their budgets. So instead of just kind of sitting around and, kind of waiting for something to happen, I started making opportunities for things to happen. I started my own company, and I started making courses to teach technologists who do a lot of the repair on the medical equipment in the hospitals. I started making a course about teaching them what the actual information and what the value of that information is that comes across. I worked with nurses. I took anatomy and physiology courses on the side and ended up building that alongside with a first aid company. And I kind of eked out an existence until I found this job within Vancouver. Before that, I got a job with Health Canada, and this was an interesting place to work because I was fresh out of school, interested in biomedical engineering, interested in healthcare as a whole, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. And so I got a job with the Regulatory Affairs Department with Health Canada. This was based in Ottawa. They have satellite offices in every province across the country as well. And we did a lot of work researching and investigating incidents that resulted from medical devices. So this gave me a really good breadth and kind of experience in what kind of devices are out on the market, and some of the problems and risks associated with their ongoing use. So it was a very cool job from that aspect. Learned a lot about the field, but working in regulatory, it's a bit of a very kind of slow-moving, very reactive kind of field. You're dealing with federally legislated federal legislation. It takes a lot of time for revisions to make their way up through Parliament to become a priority. Health Canada is a huge department. And so I was working with regulations that were in their second generation in 2007 that were drafted and legislated in 1997. So I was working with rules and regulations that were 10 years old, and they still have not been updated at this point as well. So I didn't respond super well to that. It was a very kind of office-based job. You were talking to people on the phone. And I really like speaking with people, and you can see below as a lifeguard and a swim instructor, that's what I did for 11 years, and I did that for 11 years because I really liked it. I got paid to act like a 4-year-old. I worked with people, worked with teams. We learned life-saving skills, teamwork, great communication skills. It was an awesome job, and I really wanted to kind of carry that forward, and I didn't feel I was getting that in kind of a back office kind of job. The other two summer positions I had, those I held when I was a student. Again, really not sure what I was looking at doing, so just trying very different things. Working with a hydroelectric company down in Toronto, and with Transport Canada regulating the transport of dangerous goods across the country. So if you ever see a big oil or a big tanker truck out on the highway that has a red triangle on it and some numbers written in it, that's the regulatory department for dangerous goods transport. Most of them you'll see a gasoline and diesel fuel, but we regulated that, and again, kind of interesting perspectives on that. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Winnipeg Region Health Authority as a company. They are quite large. We represent a very big geographic area within the province. We service the immediate 700,000 people in Winnipeg, but we also provide tertiary care service, which is like primary critical care service, to all the residents of Manitoba, to Eastern Saskatchewan, Western Ontario, up to Thunder Bay, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. So we have a tremendously large referral base that comes into the city. There's 27,000 employees in the hospital, in the WRHA alone. That's a lot of people working a lot of different jobs, and we're all trying to achieve the same vision here of healthy people, vibrant communities, and care for all. So lots of people really trying to work hard on that kind of an aspect, and it's reflective in the budget that we operate on every year, which is $2.6 billion. So it's a substantial chunk of money. If you look at what the provincial budget is for healthcare, or what the provincial budget is as a whole, it's $12 billion a year in terms of what the province of Manitoba spends. 5.5 of that $12 billion is dedicated solely to healthcare services. That's over 40% of the money that comes in and out of the government office goes directly to healthcare. So there's a lot of money that's being spent, and a lot of need and demand from the system. My position as a clinical engineer, these are kind of some salary figures that they asked for, some information figures that they asked for. It's about $70,000 to $90,000 a year starting, and kind of topping out. There's a pension plan that we contribute to. Your employer matches those contributions 1-to-1. You get to a period called Magic 80, and you can retire. Magic 80 is your age plus the number of years of service equal 80. I started when I was 27. I can retire when I'm 54 with a full pension is kind of what it works out to, because I'll have 27 years of service at that point. 27 plus 54 is 81. We're a unionized group, and we have healthcare benefits supplied by Manitoba Blue Cross. And we have pretty regular work hours. I have a BlackBerry that they give me, so I do work a little bit more offline as well, depending on how things emerge. and if there's any urgent things that are happening. And I also work the 8.67 hour shift instead of the 7.75 hour shift. Basically, it enables me to get every second week I get an extra day off. So I get a long weekend every 2 weeks, basically. Can tack it on to additional long weekends, makes for 4-day weekends. It's pretty awesome. In terms of what to wear during a general day, I generally wear something like this. There's days when I'm in the operating room where I'm in scrubs and greens and runners, but for the most part, day-to-day meetings and whatnot, I dress as you see me today. Most of the travel I do is within the city, and I do travel to conferences. I'm also the treasurer for the Canadian Medical Biological Engineering Society, and so I do travel to our national conferences on an annual basis as well. So the position that I work in, just to give you guys a little bit of breadth on that, I'll also talk about the other biomedical engineering positions that exist as well. So I work directly in the hospital with the devices that we come in. So a lot of biomedical engineers out there, they'll work for private sector companies, and they will develop medical devices from an electrical standpoint, from a mechanical standpoint, from both. You can get something like hip replacements, knee replacements. You can get heart-lung machines for cardiac surgery, heaters and coolers to heat and cool body temperatures. You have EKG machines. You have brainwave reading machines, electroencephalograph machines. There's tons of medical devices that involve both electrical, mechanical, software, networking components that all kind of come together in this day and age. And when you've got a company, like we just had a recent tender for ventilators, we had 31 companies who responded with ventilators that they were interested in offering to us. How do we decide what is the best ventilator that suits our hospital and our needs? That's where I kind of come in, and I help the clinicians and the doctors sort through that technology and make sure that we get the right technology, the right price for our health region. There's a major focus also right now in terms of medical records, electronic medical records. What used to happen and still continues to happen at a lot of hospitals is you have, when you go to one hospital, say you go to Concordia Hospital, you have a medical record number at Concordia Hospital. You have a medical file over there. If you go to HSC, say you get in a car accident and you end up at HSC because that's the trauma center for the region, you'll go there and you'll have a blank slate if you've never been there before. You could have a whole bunch of tests and information over at Concordia Hospital sitting in that folder, but none of that information is actually available at Health Sciences Center because they're two completely separate hospitals. So we're working to turn all that information into electronically, basically, and make it available on a computer so that it's available regionally to anybody. It's kind of like, for those of you who play Xbox or for those of you who game online, the first Xbox really was a standalone system. You played it at home with your friends. They came over, you played Xbox together, they left, game was over. Now you can play online with anybody in the world, and that's kind of what we're trying to work towards with our health information, is making sure that everybody's health record is connected. So where you travel, where you move around, if you're from Dauphin, you're from Thompson, you're from Churchill, you're from Winnipeg, your health information is available to wherever you're at. Some of the things that if you are looking for a job with the WRHA, what I encourage you to do is to get out there to meet people, to try out the jobs, to shadow people, and kind of work that way. You can apply online and through websites, but I find the most success in how I got my job was by going out and actually networking with people and trying new things and meeting people. When that resume comes across their desk, they're going like, oh yeah, I know Kyle. He told me he was going to apply to this. Your resume gets put in there because you've built a good rapport with that person. Otherwise, you're looking at 20, 30 resumes that all kind of look, maybe sound the same. How do you sort through who's who and what's what? It really helps to have a good rapport with people if you're looking for a job. So some day-to-day perspectives on things that I do, long-term equipment planning and lifecycle management, so making sure that devices come in and out. We have $300 million worth of equipment in the region, 66,000 devices. We get $8 to $10 million a year to replace said devices. We get additional money through foundations and donations and all that kind of stuff. So we do a lot of work in terms of sorting when things and strategizing, when things are going to be replaced, how they're going to be replaced, how we're going to integrate them, and what kind of resources and budgets are going to be required to do such projects. There's incidents that happen regularly with medical devices. They could be a problem with the device. They could be a user problem. Our job is to kind of get to the bottom of it, figure out what the source of the problem was, identify it, make sure that corrections are put in place. New technology, risks, and all that kind of stuff. It's we're trying to buy some patient warmers right now. Patients lay on the operating table for up to 6-7 hours, sometimes longer. If you're looking at a double lung transplant, you're looking at almost 10 hours of surgery in which a patient's laying on a bed. These rooms are air conditioned, and they cycle the air through 22 times per hour. So you get a lot of cool air moving through these rooms. A patient who's unconscious, who's not active, their body temperature is very prone to dropping. We're looking for ways to actually kind of maintain a good core body temperature. Blowing warm air across them just isn't sufficient. And so we're looking at risks around patient burns, around, you lay on something wet for a while, moist for a while, you sweat a little bit, you can get pressure sores, you can get ulcers that form. So we're looking at all the technology in terms of how it works with the people itself. And within our department, there's 7 of us who do this kind of job. We each have individual programs that we work for. I work directly with the cardiac sciences program, and I work with the surgery program itself. There's critical care, there's emergency, there's medicine program, there's long-term patient care, and there's, what else is there? A few more. Sorry, I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. I work a lot with equipment repair technologists. So this is a technologist who operates on the day-to-day. You can kind of see that I do a lot more of the 10,000-foot overhead kind of view stuff. And the day-to-day work is performed by equipment repair technologists. This is a certified electronic technologist program that you could take at college. You work day-to-day with the equipment, repairing it, and responsible for its upkeep. And I also work with unit managers, program team managers. These are kind of supervisors. And we work with physicians, nurses, charge technologists. Charge technologists are great people to work with. There's so many different disciplines of it. You could be an imaging technologist. You could be a radiation technologist. You can be an electroencephalographer. You can be an EKG technologist for heart rhythms and whatnot. These are all college-based programs that you can take that are super cool. Day to day, you're interacting with patients, you're responsible for patient care, you're gathering information, and you're providing that information to a physician. Nurses, there's all kinds of different nurses out there. You have a nurse, a registered nurse, who is a university-based program. There's healthcare practitioners, there's nurses' aides. Those are kind of more college-based programs that you guys can take as well if you're interested in something like that. Again, you're much more responsible for direct patient care at that point. I'm much more, and our technologists, we are much more of a support service. So we support the nurses, the doctors, and the clinicians as they do their job by making sure that the technology that they use is reliable and working well for them. So a little bit more kind of in the background, but at the same time, it's very fulfilling and very rewarding to be able to know that they can count on you and you be able to provide them with a great service. The other cool thing is I get to work with the programs directly in their administration group. So the program administrators involve a medical director, a program director, and an administrative director who are responsible for the vision and the direction of that program. They're responsible for paying everybody's salaries, determining what kind of treatments that they'd like to provide to patients, what services are provided to patients, and all that. And it really pays to work well and very closely with them because they tell me what the vision and the direction is of their program, and I go out and I find equipment and technology that helps them bring that piece together and fulfill that goal. If you remember what our salary or what our operating budget is for the WRHA, it's $2.6 billion per year. 74% of that, $2.6 billion, so about 1.8 of it goes to staffing, direct staffing, benefits, pension, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of money that we're spending on staffing. The last thing we want to be doing is hiring more and more people to handle patient care. We're really looking for ways in improving the way information flows through the system and enabling people to spend less time handing off paperwork, writing down things manually, recording things, and making them more efficient at doing the job that they're really good at. And I'll get to that when I talk about this, which is the MUSE program. It's a very large information management system that we're operating for the cardiac sciences program. And it records EKGs in 3 different fashions: the resting EKG, which they'll do at your bedside, a stress EKG, in which you are deemed to already have some kind of a heart condition, and they will stress you and create kind of a little mini heart attack, or they'll kind of stress you until the point where you start to feel chest pains, and they'll be able to detect, how soon, how late do you actually need to be treated. Just because you have a heart problem doesn't mean that you get treated right like that. We have huge waiting lists, and there's a lot of people that need the service. They'll look at how this impacts your quality of life and determine when you are best able to be treated at that point. We also do ambulatory Holters. This is another form of EKG that you take home with you. We put on for 24 hours. This is a very kind of advanced diagnostic system, advanced in terms of much ahead. So you think you might have a problem, you're not feeling super great. You go to your doctor, he can't find anything wrong with you. We'll hook you up for 24 hours. You go do your day-to-day activities, and then we'll take a look at that, see if we see any abnormalities. We do this kind of service for the Cardiac Sciences program at all 7 hospitals in Winnipeg and 38 other sites within the province. This information has to come from a lot of different places in order to get to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg is the only center that actually does all the review and analysis of all this stuff and all the reporting on it. So you get somebody up from Thompson who has an EKG done in Thompson. All that information comes down here. It's read by a cardiologist here in Winnipeg, and then they get a report faxed back to them at the end saying this is what the results are. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a single platform in which every person's EKG for the entire province from all 3 systems will come together into one. So you have a complete patient history from when they were a child, and whenever EKG they've had, whatever test they've had over their entire life will be there. So a physician can actually go back and see how their heart rate has evolved and how it's changed over time, depending on what kind of services you've required from the hospital. Most of our physicians, and the reason we're chasing after this right now as kind of a baseline for our program, is that physicians have compared EKGs to water. Water, essential part of life. EKGs, essential part of diagnosing and treating ailments. So it's something that the Cardiac Sciences program has recognized, and I'm working with them to help implement and deploy something like this. So some of the things that are very critical that I look at in this is data accuracy, data quality, data security. Security is a big thing when you've got 38 sites sending in information from you from all across the province. You want to make sure that the VPN tunnels that we have open and the web portals that we use are all secure. Another main goal that we're trying to do is eliminate redundant steps. I could show you a workflow diagram of what we do now in terms of writing reports, printing them off, walking them to physicians' offices, dropping them off, physician reading them, writing down on some notes on them, walking them back. Why are we paying a physician $200 an hour to walk down the hallway and drop off reports? It's a complete waste of time. I'd rather pay them to be reviewing this kind of stuff and getting rid of our backlogs. The reports are then printed. They're put in the electronic portfolio over at St. Boniface Hospital. They get faxed out to the physician. No one else at any of the other community hospitals sees this information. So the whole idea, again, centralize it, make it electronic, put it in their provincial record that Manitoba eHealth operates in their IT group, and then you get a lot more information moving through that system. Some of the challenges that we have with this are funding, both on a capital level, so we get capital dollars to purchase the hardware and the software from the vendors. We also need operating dollars to do something like this. Operating dollars are responsible for the staffing and the positions that are going to be created when we deploy something like this. You can't just deploy something like this and not have any back-end support through Manitoba eHealth. Manitoba eHealth is our full IT support group. They report within the WRHA. So they have an office down at 355 Portage, the Air Canada building right next to Portage Place, 7th floor, massive server farm, and they operate all of our information systems from there. There's positions with that within, there's application administrators, there's system engineers, there's architects, there's all kinds of positions within that IT group. I'm kind of just learning about it and trying to get my foot in the door there to understand how they work better. But Manitoba eHealth has over 600 employees right now, compared to my group, which has, about 60 in Winnipeg. So it's quite a difference in terms of staffing levels, and they're very deeply involved in a lot of our information management systems. Some other concerns we have are around privacy. Privacy being a big thing. You need the right record associated with the right patient at the right time. If you think about somebody with a hyphenated name, how many different ways could you spell a hyphenated name like Saint Croix Laval or something like that? You could have st dot space CROIX. You could have st CROIX. You could have xt space or st space. All of this creates completely different patient records. How do you tie all that information together and making sure that it's accurate? There's a lot of work, and it sounds like small stuff, but when you get people manually entering things, that's where mistakes happen, and we're trying to get rid of that manual data entry and all that kind of stuff. So I'll switch gears a little bit to talk about something a little bit different that I do within my job. So in addition to being responsible for the surgery program and the cardiac sciences program, I also manage our surgical instrument repair lab. This is a very unique service. There's only 3 labs that operate like this in Canada. And we do a lot of support for scissors. We do a lot of sharpening, equipment repair, and predominantly the work is sharpening, I would say, that we do. But there are sometimes opportunities when we're in the OR and we're working with physicians that we can actually see an instrument and see how the physician's using it and kind of go like, that makes absolutely no sense. We can do something about that. Let's try and do something about this. And the reason I'm shifting into surgical instruments as well is what I've been talking a lot about is electromedical equipment. And this stuff is very advanced stuff. It involves a lot of resources. It's highly regulated by both the FDA in the United States, and it's also regulated by the Canadian governments, European Union. And it costs a lot of money and a lot of time to get a device from concept into market. There's a local Winnipeg company here. They've had to raise about $40 million in capital in order to just get a first prototype designed, tested, manufactured, and now they're starting to push it. So $40 million. You need either a lot of people with very shallow pockets to invest in something like that, or a few people with really deep pockets to invest in that. So it's a lot of work in terms of getting together a team, talking to the right people, and building that kind of revenue in order to start something very complex like an electromedical device. A surgical instrument is regulated a little bit differently in that it's a very simple regulatory process to do. It's very simple from a mechanical point of view also. And so for me, I see that as a good opportunity to kind of play around within the hospital on some of the time that I have to see if you can make a difference on that. A lot of these medical devices, they sell for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Some of our most expensive devices probably run the range of about $1 million to $1.5 million if you're looking at an X-ray or a CT or an MRI machine. You're looking at $1 million straight up capital purchase, all the way down to $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. A surgical instrument can cost a couple $100, but you can sell a lot of them if they're well designed and they're well used. If there's a real need for this. We're trying to push this instrument on, it's used right now by thoracic surgeons. We're trying to use it in urology. We're trying to use it in any deep bowel, any vascular kind of procedures. And we're trying to get it into hip replacement procedures. So we're out pushing this. But I'll tell you a little bit about what we saw and how we kind of changed some of the design characteristics for it. And I have one of them up here if you care to see it. Hasn't been used yet. Even if it were, we run through strict cleaning processes and all that kind of stuff. So a mixer forceps is a clamping tool that they use, and you can see by the jaws on the bottom picture that it's designed to clamp tissue and hold it. So there's a ratchet mechanism at the bottom. You bite it, you clamp it, you hold it, and you can let go of the instrument. It's going to hold that vessel closed. You can put this off to the side, and you can continue to work on the vessel that you've clamped. The surgeons were using this as a dissection tool. So instead of biting down, they were actually trying to kind of push tissue away by opening up the jaws and kind of clearing a way for tissue around they're using it on a pulmonary artery at this point. So the artery that comes from your heart to your lungs in order to get the blood oxygenated before it returns to your heart to get pumped out to the rest of your body. So you can see by some of the characteristics on this, the ratchet keeps the arms a lot wide, very wide. And so if you're trying to dissect with your hands open like this, you're not getting a lot of range of motion. This is actually very awkward kind of motion as well. They don't need the ratchet because they're not clamping, they're dissecting. So we decided for one of them to take the ratchet completely off. We changed the angle. We changed the angle of the handles, I can show you on this slide here, and changed the opening ratio of it from 10:1 to 8:1, bringing them a lot closer together. And this allows a lot more dexterity and flexibility for the physician to work with. In addition to that, the surgeon was also having to dissect with the curved part of it, and he didn't feel that was giving him enough feedback in terms of response. So when he touched something, he wants to feel it, and he can feel it through the instrument. He wasn't getting that feel that he wanted by dissecting along the edge. He wanted to dissect along the tips. So we changed the angle of the tips and opened it up a little bit more so that he could dissect using that aspect of it instead of and so it's a lot more of a curved profile than a 90-degree bend in which we originally found it. All that we really had to do to comply with the medical device regulations was to write an engineering report. We stamped it. We made sure that it was easy to clean, and we got permission from the hospital to use it. And we've been using it successfully for 2 years now. So it's a really cool kind of story and invention. We're trying to pursue a patent for it. What I would love to do is to patent the device and to have another company distribute and sell it, and then pay us royalties on that. The royalty relationship that we have worked out with the University of Manitoba, because they would purchase the patent, is a 50-50 split, and I would get 25% of that. So it's pretty awesome. Again, you sell, let's say, 1,000 of these at $100 a pop. That's $100,000. It's $25,000 in my pocket for maybe 40 hours of work on something like that. So it's pretty cool. But again, we'll see if something like that were to happen. If there's any thing that I could talk more, if there's one more thing if I could talk about is getting involved in kind of industry and meeting people and doing all kinds of stuff. I'm the treasurer again of the Canadian Medical Biological Engineering Society, CMBS. Through this organization is actually how I met a lot of the contacts that I know today, and it's actually how I got my job in Winnipeg. I went to the conference one year. I presented that course that I told you about that I designed while I was looking for work. I met my boss. I talked to him a little bit. He told me that he was looking to hire in the fall. Sent him my resume directly, had a few follow-up calls. He called me. I had an interview. I already knew the guy. I knew, especially not living in Winnipeg, it was really nice to actually know the guy a little bit beforehand. And I knew he made a great impression on me, so I knew I wanted to work for him. And I made that connection happen through that. So this is a good national society in Canada. If you're in university, there's student chapters. It's $35 to be a member. And there's an American chapter as well, American College of Clinical Engineering. Lots of great resources, and even if you're just looking for job postings and all that kind of stuff, there's job postings on all of these websites as well. AMI is the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, and I'm doing a really cool project with these guys right now. They've developed a guidance document, a bit of a standard. It's not regulated, but it's a standard around integrating medical devices onto an IT network and looking at all the risks and managing those risks associated with putting a medical device on that network. And so I do a lot of work following them and working with their work groups on this as we're running through a pilot project of this right now. And then HIMSS is the Healthcare Information Management Systems Society. They are quite a large organization based out of the United States, focused around electronic medical records. So all the software and IT work around exchanging information. So one device from General Electric needs to talk to a device from, say, Philips. They're coded completely differently. How do they send the same messages across so that they're all received? And then how does that message, for say, go to an electronic medical record designed by a different company like DB Motion, for instance, or Epic? These are all different companies who code things very differently. They all need to speak the same language. HIMSS is a group that facilitates that kind of stuff. Their conferences are huge. They're amazing. 35,000 people. I quite enjoy. We were in Las Vegas 2 years ago. We were in Orlando this year and New Orleans last year. Bill Clinton spoke last year. Hillary Clinton spoke this year. Really cool people to listen to and talk to. Great experience. So those are a couple of the organizations that are out there if